Aloha, good morning. It's been a while since I've taught with Success World. I was out for a minor surgery, and then I think there's been a little bit of confusion, and again, today's class was canceled. So I am trying to find out if I am still going to be teaching weekly or not. I'm just waiting to hear back. But I had briefly given a summary of what I would be teaching this week. Last week or the week before. So same lesson. I did get a little bit into clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairaudience, just briefly. And then I shared the story of my experience with Jim Channon and that vision that I had when I was with him. And so there were a couple points I missed when I was watching my video, and I wanted to go ahead and make those points today. And then I just wanted to share a holistic principle with you. Sometimes I think, I've been in this field for a really long time, and so some of these universal principles of holistic concepts, I guess I would say, I tend to assume that everyone knows them. It's funny. I think it's whatever field you're in, you it becomes so second nature to you that you forget that there are people out there that have maybe not heard the concept or the concept is very new. So I want to just make sure that I'm covering some of these basic concepts with you too, to make sure we're sort of all on the same page. But excuse me. Getting back to clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvoyance, and claircognizance, I think I gave the story where I had seen this image of this Grim Reaper. The dark hood, and you can't see the face, and, universal sort of or global sort of representation of death. I think when most people see that image, they see death. And I was explaining archetypes and how information comes in. So in my theory, uh, I was describing how we have these senses that we have sort of gradually shut down, or a large percentage of the population has shut down. But then, of course, we have the non visible side of our spectrum, right? Even like the light spectrum, energetic spectrum. There's those frequencies that we are able to see, those frequencies that we are able to hear, and then those frequencies that we are not. So as far as like say clairaudience, say these if you think about a dog whistle, like the human ear can't pick up on that frequency, but dogs can, right? And when I was speaking a little bit about, the way that sharks hunt with infrared, like our eyes can't pick up on that, but sharks can, we can have an infrared camera and we can pick up that visually, right? So those energies are all around us. My theory is that we do get that information coming in. And then the way that we process it, it's maybe not visible, right? Not visual with our eyes, but there's a sense of a different level of understanding, a level of understanding that is coming from a different place entirely. And the archetypes that I've mentioned before our are a form of universal communication, and I've described that before, but it's an image or a picture that gives you a feeling or an emotion or a knowing, so that these subtle energies that we pick up on in various ways, and I'm not sure exactly how that happens, I just know that it does happen. We can get that image um, and process that image and get that information from that image, because sometimes we don't have words for what we're feeling, what we're experiencing. When we have a clairsentience, we have a sense, a feeling in our body of something happening that is beyond our ability to perceive with our eyes or our ears, right? We get a sense. People will say chicken skin in Hawaii, that's where you get chills, or they'll say the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, or they talk about their intuition. I know that when I was surfing, I would always get out of the water if I got spooked, like I felt there were sharks out there, right? So there were big, huge tiger sharks in Hawaii. There were big, huge hammerheads. We have shark attacks out there. You could be very deep out in the ocean. I used to like to surf at the harbor, and I know there were 3 resident tiger sharks that were huge, 20 feet, 18 feet. They can eat you in a heartbeat, right? And I've heard other surfers say, "Oh, it's your imagination. Just talk yourself out of it." That fear, right? But I recognize that there were many times I went out and didn't have that feeling at all. So I always trusted that feeling and would get out. I believe it was a primal response to predators being close by. So I always trusted it and would just get out of the water. I surfed for 40 years and I've never seen a shark. And I was out for 6 or 7 hours a day. I've seen small reef sharks. They're not dangerous, right? But I've never seen a giant tiger shark. And that's very rare for somebody who spends that much time in the ocean, especially in sharky waters, right? I also did have dreams about sharks. I would have dreams about sharks, and I would not go out the next day. I would just not go. Uh, and I remember having a patient in the pain clinic I worked in come and see me and said, oh, he was somebody that I would see in the water a lot when I surfed. And he said, hey, hey, Corey, where were you? We didn't see you today. And I said, well, yeah, I don't know if I even said I had had a dream. He's like, oh, I think he said, you weren't there today. Oh my gosh, you missed it. There was like a 14-foot hammerhead. And, I had had that dream the night before. So this is this intuition or this sense of knowing. Claircognizance can come in as just this information that you know. It can come verbally, right, in words. I've had it where I've heard things. I remember right before Fukushima got hit by the huge, I think it was a typhoon that hit. Uh, it was about 2 a.m. maybe, 3 a.m. I had this. This was after, I believe, originally there was an earthquake and a tsunami that hit. I can't remember. I'll have to look. This was when Fukushima, the nuclear plant in Japan got hit for the first time. I'm very sensitive to those types of things. I had a lot of visions about uh, the sea creatures and the animals in the ocean. Uh, but it was originally damaged, I believe, by earthquake or tsunami waves. I'll have to look that up. But I do remember then again it was hit by a hurricane or typhoon, I believe. Below the equator, they're called typhoons. Yeah, I haven't looked at that in a long time, but they spin in the opposite direction in the southern hemisphere than they do in the northern hemisphere. So I was sound asleep and I just kept hearing this word radiation, radiation, radiation over and over in my so much to the point that it woke me up out of a sleep. And I just instantly thought Fukushima. And I remember, you know, picking up looking at it on the radar, right? The Doppler map would be on there. You can watch these things, and I was always very in tune to that, living in an island or on an island, because we also would get hit by hurricanes, and so there's a season for that. And so, I was always watching that, and uh, yeah, sure enough, it was like a Category 5 right off the coast, about to slam into Fukushima, and that's when the real damage happened. So we can get this information in many ways, and it really, mm, it's interesting to pay attention to. Oftentimes we shut down our intuition. We second guess ourselves. We talk ourselves out of things. We see things, we don't trust our intuition. The more we trust our intuition, the more we can fine tune these skills. And these skills, I believe, are natural, and were given, gifts that are given to us uh, for protection, right? So that we have understanding, so that we have knowledge, so that we are protected. I believe they're divine gifts. I believe, of course, I'm not an atheist. I'm not an agnostic. I have very deep spiritual beliefs. So I do believe in the beyond is what I call it, right? So I see many different planes of reality. And the ultimate reality is the beyond in my mind. Hawaiians would call that Po. In Taoist philosophy, that would be the yin aspect, the non being, right? The being comes from the non being. The non being is the ultimate reality beyond, right? You can think about it as Brahman, in Hinduism, the one God, that all the gods come from. The one God is the one reality, the one ultimate reality, which is this bliss, this state of bliss, this ocean of bliss that ultimately our soul uh, has divine union with God or Godhead in Hinduism. So these are these senses and these gifts that we were given, that we have learned to shut down and not use. And I think to our detriment as a society. I know that we discuss emotional intelligence. Now you hear emotional intelligence. And for those of us that are very empathic, and that word is so, so overused now. I'm going to come up with a new word, because as words become overused, they diminish in their power, and the definitions change. But for us to be able to tune into others on a deep level, a sensing, this connection and this sense of telepathy. I talked a bit about being able to communicate with plants and animals in a semi-telepathic way. It's not that these energies aren't there. They are there. It's that we've tuned out. We've tuned out. We have to tune out. There's no way we could put ourselves through the vast amount of chaos that is our current modern civilization, with all of these sensitive receptors picking up this information, right? It would be overload. It is overload. Uh, I work, in a very quiet, calm, healing space, and I spend a lot of time alone and in nature, and I teach in a very calm, beautiful wellness college. So I avoid that chaos as much as possible. I like to maintain my sensitivity to these things, because that's how I work. I can see those things going on in somebody, or feel those things going on in somebody, and that's how I work in my healing practice. So if I shut them down, I'm actually disabling aspects of my tools. When we say seeing, we're not seeing. I mean, you can pick up and sense things with your visual scope, but we again talk about third eye, right? Third eye, that chakra, bringing that information in. I've had clear vision where I have been in a space that I've seen with my eyes, but through this space here, you're able to see. Um, so the information can come in any way, many ways. You can hear it in your mind, can see it. And then you get into things where we talk about pathologies, and we talk about the DSM, we could talk about schizophrenia. We can talk about entities and demonic realms. Yeah, I've seen a lot of things. One of the things that they say, when you have this space of ecstasy, right? When you are in union with divine and divinity, and you're seeing in that way, it's a peaceful, blissful feeling. So, from a psychological perspective, that's considered more of a deep prayer meditation and an envisioning that is not considered to be in that space of schizophrenia, which is different than delusions of grandeur. So if somebody's having a major manic episode, they can believe that they are Jesus. They can feel ecstatic, but the erratic nature of the behavior would have it termed as mania or psychosis. It's a fine line, you know. That is why some of these practices like meditation and energy work and grounding and managing psychic energies are so important. And so it's so sad that the West has shut that off, and there is a revival. There are schools. I suffered and struggled to find teachers. It's getting to be more mainstream in the West. I teach in a wellness college where we work with students and teach them how to protect themselves psychically. It can be overwhelming. It can end you up in a psych ward. It can. So there are ways to manage this and to use it to your benefit. And there's tools. And that is in the Vedas, you know. That is Ayurveda. That is yoga. Union with God, yoga. No, yoga is not figuring out how great you look in a picture doing tree pose on a cliff over an ocean with a sunset behind you. The West. I'm sorry. I love aspects of the West. I think I was born in the wrong place. You know, some people are born in the wrong body. I was born in the wrong place. Or maybe not. Maybe I was born exactly where I needed to be born in order to be a bridge between worlds, maybe. I laugh at the West. The West takes everything that is beautiful and sacred and figures out how they're going to make money off of it. Oh, capitalism. It has its pros, it has its cons. I want to find a balance between the two worlds. I suppose there are benefits. You know, it's like taking what the best of your mother and the best of your father and blending it. Maybe. So I'm just having a little bit of coffee and I'm going to head to work. And I wanted to share these things. I talked a bit about adaptogens in my last video. And so one of those basic principles I was trying to share is this idea that we are perfect in our way, in our design, in the way that we are magnificently and divinely manufactured by you know, the God, for whatever lack of a better term, the grand architect of the universe, however you want to describe that. Mm, yeah, however that resonates for you. But we are intelligently and divinely made so that everything that we need to maintain this system is within this system, this body system. So, one of the principles of holistic medicine and healing is that when the body is in balance, when the body has everything that it needs, the body is able to heal itself. That we have this capability. And I've had so many animals and worked with so many animals mm, over the years. I treat them holistically. I had a lot of animals on my farm in Hawaii, my aspiring farm, wellness center. Uh, I had, yeah, all sorts, pigs and sheep and goats and chickens and ducks and cats and dogs, and they all got along with each other. That was a rule. I let them know. That was the rule. They had to get along. Nobody could eat each other. Yeah, couldn't have a dog that would eat chickens. They had to be friends. And they learned we don't eat our friends. Yeah. So when you have animals and you let them be and you give them what they need as far as their food and their right environment and the love, and generally they're not, they might have a little flu from time to time. They may have something you need to do a slight intervention, right? We were in the rainforest, so I would have to tend to the goats and sheep's hooves, and regularly, I would give them a natural dewormer because of the nature of the rainforest. But when they were in that space, uh, when they had everything that they needed for their sustenance, they healed themselves. I mean, of course, you're going to have these things if something happens, if they get hit by a car or they eat poison, or I don't know the number of things that would happen. When you have all these critters, of course you have to go in and you may have to have a surgery, a repair, right? Of course we need to do this, but for the most part, the systems function beautifully. You don't feed them crap. Mm. You don't give them gooey, electric blue, glow in the dark sugar syrup, right? That would just like they're little systems, If you fed a bird that, it would probably just die in a few days. I don't know. Birds are very sensitive, right? They're kind of an indicator. I mean, they're not technically an indicator species. Amphibians are. Birds are super sensitive. If anything is slightly off in their environment, they die. Our bodies are equipped to be able to process and handle many things. However, uh, what we ingest, what we do, our lifestyle leads to how well we function. And if we live like shit, for lack of a better word, our bodies will be shit. I mean, there's something to say you are what you eat. Now, I don't want to be like I'm not a food Nazi. I don't even know. Is that PC to say? I don't know. I'm so tired. Words are rough. Words are hard. If you're offended, I apologize. If you are laughing, then great. Uh, you know, but honestly, if we're eating poison, mm, it will only be so long before our bodies are poisoned. Of course, this goes into our ovaries, into our testes, right? Into the sperm, into the egg. Yeah. If we're producing and creating these things in our body for our procreation and we are feeding our body poison, then our next generation is going to have maybe birth defects, maybe born with genetic disorders. If our environment is polluted, right? Frogs are an indicator species. Glycophosphates. I read a paper many years ago on the number of hermaphroditic frogs being born with two sets of testes and four uteruses, something ridiculous like this, from glycophosphates, right? It's only a matter of time before that gets into our human system. These are mutations, right? We see them, mutations, in our human offspring. Then we have to have medical interventions and figure it out, right? But it's because of this chemical bizarre world we've created. We're biological, like, beings. We're natural beings. We can have technology. We can have technology that doesn't pollute. We can farm that doesn't poison. It's been done. Capitalism, profit, right? Slow to change, right? But these delicate ecosystems, it's only a matter of time. Plastics in the water, microplastics, still people buying single-use plastic containers, using plastic bags. Yeah, I love George Carlin. He jokes about plastic, right? The earth will be fine with plastic. We won't. True. It's true. Has to do with us and our well-being and our health. And yeah, maybe we'll survive for many more generations with plastic in our bloodstream. Yeah, but how well will we survive? What will our quality of life be like? How will we feel? This rise in autoimmune diseases, rise in infertility. That's how it starts. This was a lot today. Did I cover what I wanted to cover? I don't know. We'll see if I'm back for Success World 1. I'm waiting to hear. And if not, I'll continue to do this for you. I'll continue to make these videos. And yeah, we'll get this content out to you. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. Take from it what you like, what resonates for you. Leave the rest behind. I'm just here to share. Have a wonderful day. Aloha.